Hello everyone, back again with another video, and in today's episode we're going to be looking at part 2 of my Juno Awards video, this time focusing on the 1980s. Stick around, see you on the flip side. Hello everyone, Daryl the Northern Vinyl Guy, and we're back with another video. Been a little bit, but this is my part 2 of my Juno Awards video, and as I mentioned, it's going to be the 1980s version. And we're focusing today on Artist of the Year, so male and female Artist of the Year for the 1980s. And so yeah, we're going to get started here in just a second. 1980s was dominated mainly by 4 or 5 male artists and 3 specific female artists. So before we get going, if you are new to my channel, definitely give me a thumbs up, click that subscribe button, leave some comments down in the section below. If you're a returning viewer, thank you for your support and love to keep this channel going. So without further ado, let's get started. 1980. We are looking at former member of the Guess Who and his album Woman Love. That is Burton Cummings. Very unique album. Burton Cummings playing the piano there, and of course from a woman's point of view, looking between her legs. I get the name of the album cover, but yeah, we're not going to go into details and specifics about that when it comes to the cover itself. Why don't we talk about the music though? And he had some hits, I think it was previous to this, with Stand Tall and things like that, but this one here, he won a Juno Award for, like I said, in 1980, for the single Fine State of Affairs, which is a fantastic track. And of course, you know, need I say more when it comes to the Guess Who? Had a whole slew of hits, late 60s all the way through the 1970s. Burton Cummings, great singer, Juno Award winner, like I said, starting off the 1980s. And then we are looking at, I would say, an artist who might not lyrically and all that kind of stuff. Maybe he's kind of a, how would we say this? You might not like him based on his vocal range and things like that. Kind of like a Leonard Cohen in a way. And that is Bruce Cockburn. And this is, of course, I think this is for 1981, and this is the album Mummy Dust. And so he takes a Juno Award that year, and that is on the True North label, which I always love the look of that label. Very cool stuff here. But this one here won for the track, what is it? The Coldest Night of the Year, which is a fantastic track. In fact, I think, other than maybe Lovers in a Dangerous Time, I think Coldest Day of the Year might be my favorite Bruce Cockburn song. So how might one describe Bruce Cockburn? Maybe a little bit folky, a little bit soft, good old true Canadian music though. Touches base on a lot of social issues, especially things like environmentalism and things like that, political nature. If a Tree Falls in the Forest, great song. Once again, that's more of an environmental one. And then there was a few others that touched base on some political stuff. So, yeah, really cool stuff there. If you are not familiar with Bruce Cockburn, give him a try. He's not going to be for everyone. Like I said, much akin, I'm not saying he's definitely not Leonard Cohen, but a lot of people don't like or have a hard time with Bruce Cockburn just because of his, I'm not going to say dry voice, but just maybe a little bit of a dry style. All right. Now for perhaps one of Canada's most well-known rockers, at least of the 1980s. There is no doubt about this. And this artist pretty much dominated the Juno Awards from, I think it was 1983 to about 1987 or 88. And that is none other than, of course, Bryan Adams. Having a little bit of glare there, but he won a Juno Award for albums such as Reckless. This one here has a ton of big hits. Summer of '69, Heaven, Somebody, One Night Love Affair. It is a fantastic album. In fact, I have 2 copies of which this one here, Bryan Adams' name is in white. I also have one where it's kind of in a silver color. And of course the Bryan Adams label that we've come to know and love. Let's check this out here. That's the backside. Nothing special on the backside, but once again, like I said, One Night Love Affair, Run to You, Heaven, Somebody, Summer of '69, Kids Wanna Rock, It's Only Love. This is full of singles, full of hits, and like I said, probably Canada's main go-to that I guess went mainstream in the United States on the billboards, and of course across Europe and in Australia and all kinds of different places. So Reckless is a well-known album, and of course you can't talk about Bryan Adams without talking about the Cuts Like a Knife album. Look at this. Speed City Records, I paid $10 for that one. About 5 or 8 years ago, so not too bad of a deal. And this one here has got a bit of a different label on it, but the Cuts Like a Knife. So what other tracks are on this that earned him some awards? It's got Straight from the Heart, Cuts Like a Knife, I'm Ready. Those are, and The Best Was Yet to Come. Those are the big ones, and there is Bryan on his, playing with his guitar there, having a fun little time. So Bryan Adams raking up the awards in the 1980s with, I think it was 3, possibly 4 Junos. And then in 1988, I can't remember the circumstances behind this, but there were no Juno Awards given out, at least not for Best Artist of the Year. And then at the very end of the 1980s, we have the Canadian member of the band, Robbie Robertson, who we unfortunately lost in 2023. Of course, Indigenous Roots right there. But this album here has all kinds of hits, and it is on, okay, of course, Geffen Records. But this is produced by Robbie Robertson and none other than Daniel Lanois. And once again, for the Juno, this one's got a ton of hits. If you haven't heard Robbie Robertson's solo album, Fallen Angel, fantastic. Showdown at Big Sky was a huge hit here in Canada. Broken Arrow, of course, for The Vagabond Heart, Rod Stewart did a cover of that song. And then Somewhere Down the Crazy River is fantastic. So yeah, you can't go wrong with this one here. Robbie Robertson's solo album, 1989, after a brief hiatus of the Juno Awards. And I think I forgot to mention this at the top, but if you're wondering what the Junos are, think of it like Canada's Grammys, basically giving out the top artists of the year, male and female. We've got, in future videos, I'll probably be looking at some bands and things like that. So there we go. So we've got, like I said, there was 4 major male artists that dominated the 1980s. And then we're going to be looking at 3 female artists that dominated the 1980s. This shouldn't come as any surprise. Anne Murray, she dominated the 1970s. If you were not familiar with Anne Murray, she is kind of Canada's East Coast folk, country, pop, all of that kind of stuff, all built into one. Got a slew of awards, and that includes for the Hottest Night of the Year album, right there. So this is one of the ones from the 1980s. So this has got the Hottest Night of the Year, of course, is a big track. Always Saying Goodbye, Ain't No Way to Rise Above, Heart on the Line, They Don't Call It Magic for Nothing, That'll Keep Me Dreaming, and more. So that is Anne Murray in the 1980s. And by this part of her career, she was actually 20 years or so in. And, you know, Anne Murray, she's still making it big here in Canada. Very well known. Kind of the Walk of Fame type deal. But she also released this one here, which is A Little Good News. And I think this one's from 1982 or 83. Having a hard time reading that one. Let's see here. Yeah, it's not telling me on this side. So, 1983. There we go. Anne Murray, 1983. This is A Little Good News. Like I said, that's not the way it's supposed to be. I'm not afraid anymore. A Little Good News. The more we try. Come on, love. Come to me. Just another woman in love. And more. So, Anne Murray, like I said, classic Canadian music here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to transition, because Anne Murray is definitely nothing like this next singer. So this next singer won this award as Female Vocalist of the Year, Best Female Artist of the Year. And of course, at this particular time, she is still performing with a band called Rough Trade. And so if you are not familiar with Rough Trade, it's kind of new wavy, maybe a little bit of synthy there, but definitely some, how would we say it, controversial material perhaps that while it was played on the radio, it was not necessarily perceived well by everyone. And that is none other than Carol Pope. Now, it's not on this album, but High School Confidential is the big one. And of course, Carol Pope is one of the first, I guess, maybe mainstream Canadian artists that came out as gay or lesbian in the late 70s, early 80s, and then she made it big. Very popular singer, and, you know, very much promoted her LGBTQ look, and promoted that in her music. So yeah, this one here doesn't have High School Confidential on it, but, you know, Crimes of Passion, Endless, Bad and Beautiful, Kiss Me Deadly, all tracks that are on this Shaking the Foundations album, which is fantastic. So kind of rock, kind of new wave, kind of poppy, synthy, but very new wave-ish. And so then that brings me to the final artist. I don't have any of her albums. I wish I did, though. But I do have her on a comp album, which I got, actually, which is really funny. It's funny that the Toronto Blue Jays just clinched their division last night, final game of the season over the New York Yankees. So they're going to be heading to the playoffs, World Series. And the last time I was actually at a Toronto Blue Jays game, just before I went to a record shop and I bought this comp right here, the Canadian Gold album. And so that brings me to my third and final female artist of the 1980s. Once again, like I said, I don't have this one other than on a comp. And that is Luba. Luba, great Canadian singer. And she does a song on this one called How Many Rivers to Cross, which is a fantastic song. But She does Every Time I See Your Picture I Cry, which is another great track. And so that's more of a soft pop, into the pop kind of era of Canadian music. If you haven't checked out Luba, if I remember correctly, I think she's out of the province of Quebec. I think it's Montreal. Could be wrong. But she is great. If you haven't checked out Luba, definitely give her a stream, and then, you know, check out some of her albums. Very excellent music. And so to kind of finish off this episode, the 1980s for 3 different countries in the world, the United Kingdom, United States, and Canada, as part of a tribute towards, you know, the Ethiopian famine, the African crisis that was going on. We had USA for Africa, and then we had Band-Aid. But in Canada, we had the Northern Lights, and Tears Are Not Enough was our contribution to that. Now, the reason that I bring this up is that almost all the artists that I have discussed in this video that won Junos, other than Luba and I think it's just Luba, they were all featured on this album. So, for example, Bruce Cockburn, Burton Cummings, we've got Anne Murray, we have Carol Pope is on here. So they were all featured on this. So it goes to show that they are deserving, and we're deserving of the Junos. And not only that, but they earn the right to be a part of this tribute. And so this is a 12-inch single, Tears Are Not Enough. Personally, as a Canadian, this is my favorite version. And then I like USA for Africa, but of course I've got Band-Aid as well. So I do have the trio, and that is just on the Columbia label. But what are some other, you know, artists that were actually featured on this? Bryan Adams, of course, I talked about him. Got a little bit of Tom Cochrane. We got Dan Hill, Corey Hart, Paul Hyde from Rock and Hyde, and the Payolas. We got Gordon Lightfoot was on here, Richard Manuel, another member of the band. In fact, actually, Robbie Robertson was not invited to this. Aldo Nova, Murray McLaughlin, Jane Siberry, Ian Thomas, Graham Shaw, and more, even Neil Young, Zappa Costa. And then we even had some celebrities from Canada that were featured on here, including John Candy, Alan Thicke. Just a slew of deserving people. Like I said, for the Junos, figured I'd give this one, you know, its due at the end of my video. So there we have it, the 1980s Canada's Juno Award male and female artists. Let me know, what are your thoughts on these artists? What are your thoughts on the bands that they belong to? And what are your thoughts on these albums? Leave some comments down below. And as always, if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Those of you that are continuing viewers, thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next one.